body. I can now say that it's the place where pharma community can come and share their views, impart bridging knowledge, share experiences, and engage in making our future better. We know that everything around us is evolving. Some say learning AI, ML, Python, R is the need of the hour. I agree these tools are important, but we need to use them in the right place. So knowing where to use them rightly is more important than just knowing the tools. Like we know how to drive a car, but knowing where to drive a car is important because only then you will be able to drive long. So while we were executing the plan for this event, I received a communication from Vedant, who has been Pharmocracy's viewer member since the inception. He'd like to speak about his experience with Pharmocracy. So let's welcome Vedant Samant.
Thank you so much, sir. Good morning to one not present here. Myself, Vedant Samant, currently pursuing my third year B Pharmacy from AIKTC School of Pharmacy, New Panvel. It actually gives me a very immense pleasure to share my views and experience that I could learn from Pharmacocracy as a member of it. Personal experience and reflection vital to learning, teaching, personal identity, and one's research. As a member of Pharmacocracy, I learned and explored a lot of new things which made me open up my mind and from a little lower version to a little higher version. In this pandemic situation, as we all are sitting at one place, not doing that much, not engaging ourselves, so really made me bored. But Pharmacocracy really made me explore out new things. What's going on across the country, across the world, really made an impactful knowledge learned from Pharmacocracy. The daily routine schedule, the small informative paragraphs which students used to write and share with us really made a very positive impact and the newer knowledge across me. Reading those articles on daily basis gave me a great opportunity to be updated with what's going on around the world. Other than this, it also gave me a very positive insight to solve those quizzes related to subject matter as well as the subject related quiz matters who shared across the world. Other than that, all the material knowledge which was shared across with me really made my mind a different discussing idea, the amount of knowledge that I got to share, and the insight that I got to know from the quizzes that I daily basis twice a week, which I solve. At last, I would like to thank the entire team of Pharmacoprisy for sharing such an impactful, knowledgeable, and informative session, which really added positive remark on me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Vedant, for such wonderful words. I can't thank you enough for letting us know this. All right. And now, finally, without spending more time, let's get to the topic of the event, clinical research as a career. For call participants, I request them to stay muted. We'll take questions after the presentation. To share his valuable experiences, we have invited Mr. Vijay Parthasarathy. He's been working with Novo Nordisk for 10 years and now as a clinical research manager and clinical research manager, talent management. The core therapy areas of Novo Nordisk is diabetes followed by hemophilia and rare bleeding disorders. Their recent achievement was FDA approval for transforming semaglutide injectable to oral dosage form with a remarkable once a week dosing for type 2 diabetes. I once again welcome and congratulate Mr. Vijay Parthasarathy, sir. I'm glad you could make it happen here.
Okay. Thank you, Nikhil, for that warm welcome. And I also thank both Pranav and Vedant for sharing their insights before this session. That makes that much more impactful. A little bit of a correction for Novo Nordisk. Novo Nordisk is not only for diabetes. Historically, it has been known for diabetes. There are two major companies actually in the world, Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly. They both started their journey about 100 years ago in 1922 for treatment of diabetes. And then, yes, we have been changing and we are also been evolving with the changing pharma industry's dynamics. From diabetes only company, we have diversified now into a lot of cardiometabolic diseases, chronic kidney diseases, ophthalmology. We are venturing into neurology. So things are changing. Why I'm saying this a little bit is for those who are listening and those who are in the column. please know this much: no matter what job you get into or which organization you get into, change happens every day. It's not like, it happens like once in a year or once in 5 years or once in a 10 year. Things are changing. And the best example is this current pandemic. This current pandemic actually has, driven digitalization across industry. Uh, within less than a year, what should have achieved in the next 10 years. And that also includes, clinical research industry. Clinical research industry is one of those industries which has been impacted really, well with this pandemic. And probably it's a positive fallout of the pandemic. It's sad that so many people are dying and so many are losing their lives, but the positive fallout is that on the industry side, a lot of things are actually changing. We are also evolving. What should have happened in 10 years, it has happened in the last 1 year or so. So those who are venturing into new, careers, those who are already in your career, please make this one particular note, as it has already been said by a lot of great personalities in history. Change is the only constant in life. Everything else is a variable. So everything changes. And I would love to thank Pharmocracy. I know it's an amazing thing that you guys are doing. You're bridging the gap between academia and the industry, which is nice. I did not have it when I started my career in 2007. I did not have an idea of what I'm going to do after my post graduation. It's quite difficult. I never had mentors. I never had somebody to set directions on what I can do. And now I'm happy to be part of this and give this talk today, because this is what I'm been doing in my company with the team that I manage. I manage a very small team, about 20 people. All of them are life science graduates and postgraduates who are working in the clinical research industry. But today, talking to Nikhil was saying it's about 200 plus participants who are there, and I'm glad that I'm sharing my knowledge or my experience with all of you, so that you do not have to start your day one with nothing, but you can start with my experience. And I do not know how many of you are actually movie buffs. I usually watch movies, and sometimes I catch up with some nice dialogues from the movie and try to learn from it. And if you have seen the movie Nayak, that is Anil Kapoor, who becomes one day CM and then becomes a CM. Towards the climax, he goes to Amrish Puri. Amrish Puri comes to him, and they want to settle some dispute. And Amrish Puri, tells to Anil Kapoor, "You've hardly been 1 year in politics, being a CM, and I have spent 20 years in politics." Then Anil Kapoor says to Amrish Puri, "In this past 1 year interacting with you, I have become a politician of more than 21 years of experience." For those who are attending this call and after this who will venture into your career, wherever you go, whichever organization, whoever could be your manager, no matter how good or bad that manager is, learn from that person's experience, because that is going to enrich you, and you will become a better person, both professionally and personally as well. So with that, I think I will start with my slides. Is that okay, Nikhil?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah. So let me share my screen first, and please tell me when you can see my screen. Able to see the screen, Nikhil?
No, sir.
Not yet. Okay.
Yes, sir. I can see.
What about now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Um, so I'm going to talk about why clinical research can be an attractive career option for all of you who are currently studying in the life science field, and why you should consider about taking clinical research as a serious career option for you. So I'm going to give a perspective. I'm not going to talk a lot of things in details, but I'm going to give a very nice uh, overview of clinical research, what it entails, and I will also give you some general tips on how to prepare for an interview when you go for a clinical research, related interview. After you get the job, how do you start building your career from there? Because it's not about job. See, for me, when I took my first job, it was all about I got a job, I got a salary. Yes, it took almost 5 years for me to learn that beyond job there is something called as career, and it needs building. Just like you build a house, it cannot be built overnight, and so is career. So I'm going to talk about how you have to build your career so that you are empowered with this knowledge while you're starting. Of course, most of you would have got this information from some of your mentors, probably some of your seniors, and by your own learning. I do not want to say that I'm going to give this information. This is the information that you're getting for the first time. But if there are certain things that were lacking, whatever information you've got, hopefully I might be able to plug in some gaps. So a little bit introduction. Nikhil asked me to give a little introduction about myself so that it might be inspiring. I do not know how much it will be inspiring for you guys, but I have completed my postgraduate in biochemistry. I did this in 2007, and by the time I finished my post graduation, I have to tell this, I was already having a job in hand. It was not campus selection. It was not campus placement. We did not have that concept in my college, and neither did I have an idea that where to find a job after my examination was over. It's just that a friend of a friend of a friend knew about a company which is starting up, startup company, and they were looking for some individuals who can start working for them. And I went for an interview. I was 0% sure that I'll get selected. I did not know how to attend an interview. I did not know how to answer the questions. And the friends that I asked, they were clueless. And none of my, lecturers were, that savvy with the information of what happens in the industry. So it was like, okay, let's do this. And then I went and I got selected. Yes. From there, my journey had started. I've also got an associated learning experience from IIM
Excuse me, sir.
Calicut. This was mostly sponsored by
Hello.
my organization, Novo Nordisk. It was a short-term course, about 5 days, wherein I was a high-performing senior executive, and I was in line for the next level promotion, or let's say progression of my career. And I learned a lot. And this was 5 years ago, and this also has changed my life, both professionally and personally. And I also have a distant education, PG diploma in quality assurance from Cliniminds India.
So we can't see your
I
slides.
carry totally about 13 years of work experience in clinical operations, and my hobbies include photography. I'm an amateur photographer, or probably less than an amateur photographer, not a professional one. I read a lot of books. It doesn't matter what kind of books. I read every genre of books because it just keeps me occupied. I play a lot of video games. I have been called childish for that by my colleagues, my friends, my parents. But it's one way to chill, I would say. I love long drives, both long drives and rides. And finally, I also love staying aloof because I try to disconnect, when I get a lot of work related stress or pressure.
Excuse me, sir.
I'm sorry, Nikhil. I think I changed the slide. You're not able to see it?
No, sir. So you'll have to make it in the presentation mode.
Yeah, I'm actually doing it in presentation mode only. Now we are able to see the second slide.
Excuse me, so in that case, I think you will have to change, like reshare the screen.
Okay, let me just do that once more.
Can you press F5 maybe then?
Yeah, we do that. Now we are able to see it.
Oh, not yet, sir.
Okay, sometimes.
Yes, sir, we see it now.
Just let me know if the slide doesn't change. Let me go to the next slide. Is the slide visible now? My
So
career
this,
graph?
no, sir, it's the second slide that we can see, but not in the slideshow mode. So
Okay,
not
let
in the
me.
full screen.
I think there's something wrong with the slideshow mode. I can just change like this in the PPT mode itself. Hopefully that would be visible enough.
Yes, sir.
Okay, is it visible, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So talking about my career, I started my career in July 2007 in a small startup CRO called as ETI Carle. I worked there for about 2.5 years. And then I joined another company, mostly because my first company went without projects for about 6 months and they had to shutter it. And I was the last one to leave the organization. And then I joined another startup organization, but this time it was also a training institute which was giving out clinical research courses. Probably some of you might be aware, it's called as IC Bio. It's in Bangalore. I was there for about a month, not more than that. Then I went to i3 Pharma. Why I did this, I will tell you a little bit later when I'm talking about how to build your career. And then I went into i3 Pharma. I was on a contractual role working with Novo Nordisk on their projects. And then when there was a role open in Novo Nordisk, they were impressed with my work and they wanted to see if I'm interested to get into Novo Nordisk. I said very much yes. And since then, I've been there in this organization. Only recently, 10 days ago, I finished a decade of work with Novo Nordisk. Having said that, this was just a little bit about myself. So let's get into the actual deal. For those who do not know about drug discovery, Nikhil, I hope the slide is visible. Drug discovery process.
Yes, sir, this slide is visible.
Fine, not a problem. Maybe it's the problem with slideshow. I know most of your life science graduates, but if you do not know, a drug discovery process usually takes anywhere between 10 to 15 years. And it starts with about 10,000 compounds and ends with one approved product at the end of this 10 to 15 years. Now, most part of this 10 to 15 years, that is almost 50%, is actually spent here in clinical trials. And that is what I'm going to talk today. And there is a little bit of timeline which is occupied by preclinical research, wherein you're looking at the drug discovery, purification of a drug molecule. You're looking at its molecular properties, how it can interact with your ligand or receptors on a cell, how it can affect the cellular function to cure a particular type of a disease, or it can interact with a gene or change the physiological process. Those kind of things will happen, and then it is tested on animals. It is called as preclinical research. Mostly it is tested on albino rats, rhesus monkeys, or some sort of rabbits. I do not remember the exact species name, but rabbits are also used. And then 6 to 7 years of research actually happens in humans. And then once the data is being collected, the data is applied to a regulatory authority. Regulatory authorities are, simply put, if I were to give an analogy, if you have to drive a car on road, you need to have a license. And the Road Transport Authority, or the RTA, is the one who gives you that license. After you prove to that person, who is the safety inspector who sits with you in the car, that you are able to drive the car, you know what is an accelerator, what is a clutch, what's a gear, what's a brake. and then you get a license. Similarly, we have an authority in India. It is called as CDSCO, under which there is an office called as DCGI, which gives you the approval for all the clinical trials to conduct, and post the conduct of the trial, the approval for marketing the new drug for whatever said indications. And then this usually takes about anywhere between 6 months to 2 years, but things are changing. 2 years was about 10 years ago. Nowadays, it's usually anywhere between 6 to 8 months. But the clinical trial phase of phase 1 to phase 4, that timeline has not changed that much drastically. It has always remained the same. But we are seeing some new technology making advent into clinical research and clinical trials. So this might also change in future, and we are looking at conducting a clinical trial without human beings. Probably in the next 1 decade, this will happen in clinical research. And post a drug is approved and it is there in the market being taken by everybody, there is something called as a post-marketing drug safety monitoring that needs to be done by the organization which is selling it. Simple example, every one of you would have taken paracetamol whenever you get a headache or a body ache. Even your paracetamol as a product, there is a post-marketing drug safety monitoring for a simple product like a paracetamol to a complex product like whichever treats your oncology like a monoclonal antibody. So this is what the entire drug discovery process is, and you as life science graduates can fit in any one of these areas. It could be it in preclinical, be it in R&D, be it in clinical research, be it in the regulatory affairs, wherein the application for license comes, and be it in the post-marketing drug safety. All those things can be done. But I'm going to only focus on the clinical research part, and to a certain extent, the regulatory affairs and the post-marketing surveillance, that's called as pharmacovigilance, very creatively, and where you can actually fit in. If you have questions, please type away on the chat, and I will try to answer as many as possible once we are done with the presentation. So what's clinical research for those who do not have an idea? So it's a branch of a healthcare science that determines the safety and effectiveness. In short, effectiveness is also called as efficacy of, it could be for medication, it could be a device, a diagnostic product, or treatment regimen which is intended for human use, not the veterinary use. If it is veterinary use, that becomes different totally. So these may be used for prevention, treatment, diagnosis, or for relieving symptoms of a disease. Now, one can say that it's more or less what a doctor does in a clinic or a hospital, but there is a marked difference between clinical research and clinical practice. While in clinical practice, whatever the doctors do, whenever you see a doctor for a certain disease or an ailment, they treat you based on your signs and symptoms that you are presenting. And all the treatment has already been established by clinical research or clinical trials. So in a way, in short, I can say clinical research is the foundation for clinical practice. All the doctors will be, ineffective in a way to treat patients for new diseases if not for clinical research and clinical trials. And every year on 20th of May, the clinical research is celebrated as International Clinical Trials Day. And why 20th of May is because about 350 years ago, a British physician or a physiologist did a very short trial. It was the very first randomized clinical trial that somebody did, wherein he was studying about the effects of vitamin C on scurvy. And that fell on 20th of May or 21st of May. Somebody, some suggest, but usually it is on 20th of May. So if all of you are embarking onto clinical research or going to become clinical research in future, please be proud about this fact that you are actually working in industry which lays the foundation for clinical practice. Doctors would be ineffective without the data that is generated from clinical research, without the work that the clinical researchers do. So that's the kind of value addition that you would be doing in future as clinical research, not only to the organization to you're working, but for the entire society at large. Now, within clinical research, there are different types of research, and clinical trials is a part of that. And it is designed to evaluate and test new interventions. Again, it could be medication, it could be devices, it could be treatment regimens, it could be therapies. And clinical trials are often conducted in 4 phases. It's called as phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. Phase 1 is usually conducted in healthy volunteers like myself. I can call myself healthy because I do not have any disease by God's grace. So why they do it in healthy volunteers and why not in those population who has disease? The reason being, in phase 1, you have still not yet what can I say, establish the safety of the drug molecule in humans. It has been tested in animals before and in the lab environment, but not in humans. And because the human's physiology varies, it varies from one person to another person. So they always do it in a healthy group of individuals. And if they end up taking a diseased group of individual, the physiology actually changes once you have a disease. So that's the reason they just want to see how it works in a healthy individual, so that you can make adjustments for a diseased individual later on in the other trials that you work on. The second trial, second phase of the trial is phase 2. In phase 2, you usually come to a conclusion on what should be the adequate dose of your medication. If you ever take paracetamol, please always try to see what is the dose. It will be usually 500 mg to 1000 mg. Depends on your body weight, depends on your diet, and depends on the comorbidities that you might be having along with the fever or body ache, whatever you have. So to determine that exact dosage, phase 2 trials are conducted. Phase 3 trials are usually done in larger population groups, which are ethnically different, genetically different, to see that the drug molecule that you have does not have different ways of reacting within the physiology because of a genetic variation or an ethnic variation or a diet variation or the environment variation where the people are living. And phase 4 trials are usually called as post-marketing studies. That is, after your product has been approved, it will be studied, for monitored for safety signals. Because I said, it usually takes about 6 to 7 years to conduct your clinical trials, all these phase 1 to phase 4, phase 3 trials. But that is not adequate time to capture all the safety information of the product. And because of the population size, at the most, in phase 3 trials, you cannot go beyond 17,000 to 20,000 patients. I can just give an example. The current largest clinical trial that we are conducting in Novo Nordisk has 17,500 patients globally. When you compare that to the global population of 7 billion, that's a very minor fraction of patients who are representing a sample. And the data that is generated might not be adequate. So that's the reason after the approval of a product, the post-marketing drug safety continues for another 10 years so that you gather as much as data possible. Well, I have done some animation over here, but I'll just move this. So why clinical research? Does it make sense to enter into clinical research? I've said about you add a value to the society. You make doctors' life easier by gathering data that will make clinical practice better and better. But does it actually make sense to be a clinical research, see it as a potential career? and wherein you can also make some difference, but at the same time it also gives you a salary to pay your bills and take care of your obligations. I am one example who is sitting in front of you and talking to all of you. I have made it a career, so I cannot say anything else. But otherwise, for those who believe on data and numbers, please look at this graph, the very first graph I'm talking about, the clinical trials market size in India. That is going to grow by a phenomenal number to almost 2.5 to 3 billion USD by year 2025. And why this growth, I will talk to you about this in next slide. But yes, clinical trial, or for those companies who are doing clinical research, India has been seen as a very attractive destination to do clinical trials. And Indian environment for conducting clinical trials has changed quite drastically in the last 20 years. In 2000 and 2001, hardly very few individuals knew in the entire country what clinical research are or what is a clinical trial. Today, those people are industry leaders and they run an independent organization called as ISCR. And fast forward to 20 years now, there's so much of technological advancement, so much of scientific advancement, so much of operational advancement that has happened. Now, for most life science graduates or uh, you know pharmacy students especially, they always see clinical research as an attractive career option. That's the change that has happened in the last 2 decades. And in terms of number of trials, the kind of trials that is happening, there is a very good percentage split that has come up. This data is a little bit old. It's about 2017, but more or less the ratio has remained the same, except for observational trials is actually growing in this particular pie. It is actually taking up this space of the interventional trials. In future, you might be seeing there will be less and less intervention trials. That is your phase 1, 2, and 3, and more of observational trials, which is phase 3, phase 4. That's the kind of trials that we are looking at. And there's something called as an expanded access trial. For those who do not know about expanded access trial, so it's a trial wherein a company has discovered a new molecule which can treat a very rare disorder, and it wants to test on certain individuals who are suffering from this disorder. And as a agreement with the regulatory authority, it becomes imperative for this pharma company or biotech company who discovered this molecule to provide this molecule free of cost for those patients who have participated in the trial for their lifetime, because they cannot afford it later on. So that's the difference between a regular intervention trial and an expanded access trial. Now going to the next slide. Now where we are looking at, in 2017 it was at 1.6. As I said, in 2025 it will grow anywhere between 2.5 to 3 billion USD. That's the kind of an appreciation we are seeing. But why India? Why it works so well? India accounts for 16% of the global population. We are the second most populous country in the world after China. And nearly 20% of the disease burden across the globe is in India. Talk about every lifestyle disease, every communicable disease, and a lot of non-communicable disease. You can find them in India, except for rare genetic disorders. And if you have to see rare genetic disorders, mostly you have to go to Europe or the Americas. But otherwise, most of the other disorders are more or less present in India. And also, there are very few treatment naive patients. Though clinical research officially started somewhere around 99 or 2000 in India, not many a patient population in India are exposed to clinical trials, because uh, though we are the second most populous country, the number of patients who actually participate in clinical trials are about 0.05% of this population, not more than that. And not many are actually exposed to it. So there is so much of treatment naive patients in India. You must have heard a lot of media people saying that Indians are guinea pigs for global pharma companies. I know it's easy to convince patients in India to become a clinical trial participant. Yes, unfortunately, historically, some events have happened. The most infamous of it actually happened in the year 2012 and 13. And in those years, clinical research industry faced very difficult time. But yes, things have changed. Very few individuals are there, who, these are the black sheep who taint the name of clinical research. But the reality is far from what the media actually portrays, that Indians are made guinea pigs. It's not like that. Things have changed, and because of the pandemic, again another positive fallout. I think a larger population today knows what clinical research is and what clinical trials are, and why clinical trials should be done before the vaccine has to be marketed. Everybody wanted a vaccine after the pandemic, but they were told, what, clinical trials are not done. And then they were forced to learn what clinical trials is. So things are changing. And probably in the next 10 to 15 years, India is going to become a global hub for clinical trials. And not only that, it's not only because of the disease burden and the population size that we have, it is also because of the demographic dividend that India enjoys. India enjoys a demographic dividend until the year 2036. Now, for those who do not know demographic dividend, it talks about the percentage of population who are in their early 30s, anywhere between mid 20s to late 30s, because this is considered as the younger population who are working, who are capable of doing work, and who are skilled enough, who can speak English, who can also interact in a global platform. So India has this advantage until the year 2036. So that means there is a lot of growth that is expected. Now, I talked about how much money that clinical research has, and how much money it can bring in, but where can you actually find yourself being part of this clinical research? Is there a company or an organization or something that where you can work for? Now, there are different industries of clinical research, and these are those industries. The first one is actually clinical research sites. That exactly where that is the place where clinical research actually happens technically. These are hospitals, medical colleges, multi-specialty hospitals or super specialty hospitals, or even OPDs of certain doctors, wherein clinical research actually happens. And there is sponsor organization. Sponsor organization, when I say sponsors, sponsors are the pharmaceutical company or the biotech company, the biological company, a nutraceutical company, a medical device company, or a therapy area company, or diagnostic kit company, whichever company is this, which comes up with a new novel methodology of treating a disease or treating an ailment. They are called as sponsors because they are the ones who came up with the molecule and the idea of treating a particular disease with that molecule. And then there are clinical research organization. Shortly, they're called as CRO. And CRO are specialized professionals in the industry who know how to conduct clinical trials at hospitals like clinical research sites, how to take the necessary approvals, how to conduct the trial, where to find the doctors, where to find the patients, and manage the entire clinical trial activity for sponsors. There are certain sponsors who do not want to do all the clinical trial by themselves because it's cost, or they do not have the necessary expertise with themselves. So they just outsource it. So CROs are those outsourced companies who do it. Under CRO, there is also a smaller sort of industry. It is called as a site management organization, where clinical research organization directly interact with sponsor and sites together. Site management organizations are those which actually interacts with only sites because they manage a site or a hospital as a clinical trial site or a clinical research site, and they bring in business, or let's say clinical trials, into the hospitals. And there is a new kid on the block. It's called as ethics committee management organization, or ECMOs. These are organizations which have interactions with independent ethics committee within the country, and they would try and what I can say is that support sponsors or CROs in getting timely ethics committee approvals. And then there is supply chain management industry. Supply chain management industry supports the sponsors or CROs with distribution or couriering of trial product. All the trial product is a pharmaceutical product that is being studied for a particular disease. Now, these products has to be stored in certain temperature conditions, in certain environmental conditions, and when they are shipped from one place to another place, these conditions has to be maintained. And supply chain management industry is the one who is specialized in this. And finally, we have something called as patient support organization. This is a new concept in India. It is emerging now, but mostly it is seen in the West, wherein patients are part of certain patient support organization who get to know about newer clinical trials in the industry. So for example, I can talk about the USA. In USA, there are multiple patient support organizations. And one example would be that if there are patients who are suffering from certain types of cancer, they can enroll themselves into these patient support organization. So in turn, what will happen is the patient support organizations will give these patients information about what are the clinical trials happening for their disease condition, when it is going to happen, what is the molecule, what is the benefit out of it, what are the side effects out of it, so that the patients themselves can go and enroll in the clinical trial. This concept is there in the US and most part of the Europe in the last 10 years, but it is newly emerging in India. So these are the industries in clinical research. For those who think after your education, where you have to go to find a job, these are the places. Now coming to job verticals, what are the different types of job verticals that is present? These are the ones as of date that is there on the slide. There is jobs available in trial management. There is job available in regulatory affairs. There is job available in data management, clinical quality and training, pharmacovigilance, centralized monitoring, trial data analytics, biostatistics, business development, electronic system specialist, like electronic data capture, IWRS, IVRS, clinical trial management system, talent management, like what I am doing, GCP audits, supply chain, and a new and fastly emerging trend within clinical research, digitalization of clinical trial activities. Now, I'm going to talk about some of these job verticals, but not everything, because based on your profile, I think these would make sense. Now, if I take all the students who are completing their pharmacies or life science graduation, and they go out to seek a career in clinical research, 50% of them actually fall here in trial management, because that is historical knowledge, and historically everybody who was a pharmacist or a life science graduate went and did only trial management. But things have changed in the last 5 to 6 years. 20% of them fell or fall into data management, 10% in regulatory affairs. So that's about your 80%. Where does the remaining 20% go? The remaining 20% gets distributed in the other job verticals at a very minor fraction of the those graduates who are passing out. So I'll talk about trial management, I'll talk about regulatory affairs, data management, pharmacovigilance, and to a certain extent clinical quality and training, because that is where the majority of the people are going to fall. For the rest, we do not have time. In the interest of time, I will not venture into most of it, but you're very much welcome to connect with me after this session. I can give you some guidance. Now, trial management, there are three things, three entry-level jobs. One is clinical research coordinator, or CRC for short. Second one is clinical trial administrator, or CTA for short. And the third one is a clinical research associate, or a CRA for short. Now, what's the difference between the three different job profiles? A CRC, or a clinical research coordinator, actually sits in clinical research sites or the hospitals. You go to a hospital and you associate yourself with one of the doctors who is doing clinical trials. Now, this doctor will ask you to support him in conducting the clinical trial activities. So what is the majority of the work that you're going to do? In a given day, as a CRC, half of your time will be lost, or probably it is invested in interacting with patients who come to enroll themselves in clinical trials. So if any one of you want to become a clinical research coordinator, you should be having real good people skills. You should be really good with people. You should be someone who talks with people, who is an extrovert. If you're an introvert who keeps to himself or herself too much, and you know is not really good with people, then CRC job is definitely not for you, because you will fail terribly over there. People skills are absolute must for a CRC. And the remaining 50% of the work at the clinical research site or the hospital goes in administrative activities, like you have a trial product on which the trial is being run. You receive those products at your site, you store them in a storage condition, you monitor the regular storage condition, you spend a good amount of time in documentation. One thing, please everybody remember, when it comes to clinical research, there's one thing that is never taken for granted or never neglected. It's documentation. In clinical research, we have a saying: if you have not documented it, you have never done it. So everything that you do in clinical research needs to be documented. So you have to write a lot, or you have to type a lot. So if your fingers are not happy with writing or typing, then again, CRC job is not for you. Next comes the clinical trial administrator job, or the CTA. The clinical trial administrator, also known as in-house CRA in some organization, does the administrative job or the back-end office job in a pharma company or a CRO or a SMO. Your primary responsibility will be to support the CRAs, or the on-field CRAs, as they also called as, in their documentation activity, in dispatching activities, like a mailroom activity. You have to dispatch a lot of trial supplies, documentation to the hospitals where clinical trials are done. So all these administrative activities, finance, maintaining finance of a clinical trial, processing invoices, interacting with people. This particular job requires that you're really good with your interpersonal skills, and you should be really good at collaborating with people. If you're not good with these two skills, then CTS job is not for you. You can think about something else. Next entry level job is CRA, or a clinical research associate. One of the most important needed skill for a CRA or a clinical research associate is observation to detail. You should have a keen eye for detail. Everything you see, everything you hear, everything you record, you need to have a keen eye for all of this. And you need to do a lot of documentation. You have to do a lot of analysis based on the data that you're seeing. So you should also have analytical skills. When I say analytical skills, it is not those fancy data science thing. It's like, let's just say if you see a rainbow in sky, can you make out the individual color bands in the rainbow, or else you just see some streak of colors? That's the kind of analysis I'm talking about. So when you look at data as a CRA or a monitor, when you go to a site, you should be able to make out the data that is being generated and documented. Is it giving out a signal whether the molecule that the clinical trial is studying is safe and effective enough, or it is not? Because that's what makes the entire clinical trial a success or a failure, the data that is generated. So these are the entry-level jobs in trial management and the necessary skill sets that you should be having. For a CRC, you should be good with people. For a CTA, you should be good with collaboration. And for a CRA, you should have good analytical skills and observation to detail. If you do not have this, then probably think about something else. I'm not trying to discourage you by saying if you do not have the skill, then this job is not for you, then you're lost. All I'm trying to tell you is do not end up taking a job where you have a wrong skill set, because neither will you grow, neither will you happy. And then you would start cursing everyone, starting from your college to your lecturers to your parents to your neighbor and your neighbor's dog for whatever position you're in. But that's not the reason. Most often, a lot of people fail in their jobs and careers because they have chosen the wrong job for the skill sets that they have. So before you venture or you go for an interview, please know yourself better. Be self-aware. Know what skill sets you have and look at the job advertisement. Does the skill set needed for the job? Do you have it? Else, don't go there. It's suicide. The second one is regulatory affairs. I told in one of my previous slides that you have a decision-making authority or a licensing authority in the country, which gives the approval for conducting a clinical trial or marketing a product which is already completed a clinical trial. This falls under the purview of regulatory affairs. It is regulatory affairs because the central licensing authority is called a regulatory body, those who regulate it. So the job prospects here or the career prospect is also phenomenal in regulatory affairs. 10 years ago, it was not much. Everybody who was a CRA or a CRC was supposed to know this, but things have changed now. We have specialists in this department. So for this particular job, all you need to know, or you should have a very good knack for getting your way or getting your job done in whatever manner possible, because you're dealing with public officials or government office. You have regulatory affairs, but the regulatory body is government office. It's not a private entity. So you should be really good with your speech. You should be really good with your, what can I say? Uh, in the old Hindi saying, सीधी उंगली से जब घी नहीं निकलती तो उंगली टेढ़ी करनी पड़ती है. So you should know how to get your work done in what manner. So that is the kind of skill set that is needed. Knowledge, only theoretical knowledge alone is not adequate. So that's the kind of skill sets that we actually look for in regulatory affairs person. And then there is data management. What is data management? Simple words, data management. You manage the data that is generated because of the clinical trials that is being conducted. Now, this is being done by a certain set of individuals, again, life science graduates, who actually sit in a nice, clean office. They don't go to the field. They don't interact with doctors. They do not interact with patients. All they see on their computer screen is data, and they would have a reference list of data, and they have a data that is being generated by the clinical trial. They match it. They see whether the data that is generated by conducting the clinical trial is as per the expected standard or reference. In simple terms, that is what data management is. Data management, again, very lucrative, amazing career path. You start with as a entry-level data entry associate, and then you can grow up to senior director or associate vice president level or leadership levels in data management. Data management, with the advent of, again, digitalization and technology, is going to play a vital role in clinical research in the coming future. And then there is something called as pharmacovigilance, as I said earlier. Pharmacovigilance is your post-marketing drug safety monitoring. As I said, once your clinical trials are done and your molecule is approved, it goes to the market and people start taking it. In clinical trials, you have a controlled environment. Whatever the side effects were, you are able to learn it very well. But in real life, that's not the scenario. In real life, people do not take as per guidance. I have seen many a times some people do. Doctors prescribe, you need to take it 3 times a day after your meals. But people do not follow that. They just take it before meals and then they have their meals. And at that time, the drug might have a different side effect than what is already listed. And when this happens, they go to the doctor, and the doctor actually asks you what happened. You tell what happened. Then the doctor collects that information. And generally, this information is passed on to the company, either by the doctor or the patients by themselves. So that's why every organization has a pharmacovigilance department, which actually captures these consumer related or customer related complaints on their product. It is similar to all your electronic appliances. If you have bought a new phone or a new TV, within that warranty period of your TV or your electric appliance, if it doesn't function properly, you will have a customer support, right? So those customer support is similar to pharmacovigilance. And for this, the best or the only skill set that you need is patience, because you need to listen to people. You have to patiently listen to them. You cannot be talking too much. You should be listening to people. And then you should be able to assure them that you can take the appropriate measures so that whatever problem that they have will be resolved. And finally, I'll talk about clinical quality and training. Now, this is a new and emerging job vertical. Not many organizations had it, but a lot of emphasis is not being given to this, because without quality, there is nothing that a product can boast about itself, right? It also happens in our daily life. Whenever we want to buy something, we want to buy something that is of good quality, right? Whether it is a pen, from as simple as a pen that we write, to as good as a car that we drive in. We always want quality. Now, how is this quality ensured in the clinical trials that is conducted? So that is ensured by an independent team who is independent of trial management and everything. And they come and do sample checks of your work and say that things are as per expectation. The process of conducting the clinical trial is as per expectation. And they also take up additional responsibility of training all the employees in upcoming regulations. So whatever clinical trials or research that we do, they do not run on regulations which were formulated 50 years ago. Regulations keep changing. So every time laws change or regulations change, this department or the individuals will take up the responsibility of training the other colleagues within the department. Now, if you are someone who is passionate about teaching, or someone who has a very keen eye of finding whatever is going wrong, if you can easily catch someone doing some mischief, then you can actually fit into this job really well, because clinical quality requires someone with a knack of seeing things in a perspective which others cannot see. And then there are others like centralized monitoring, which is also an emerging trend since the last 5 years, wherein you do the same thing as an on-field CRA does, but you sit at the comfort of an office and do it. Whereas on-field CRAs go to the hospitals and do. There is trial data and analytics. If somebody has done some data scientist course or something, this is also a new field that is coming up. It has gained traction since last 2 years. So you do a lot of analysis. You use tools like Tableau, you use Power BI, and you look at data, you manipulate data, and from the data you find out signals and give some information to the leadership team or a management team in an organization, how effectively you can run your clinical operations, where you can save some costs. Biostatistics, very less spoken job vertical within clinical trials, but very few individuals across the globe who does biostatistics, and very highly paid job within clinical trials is biostatistics. If one of you have done statistics, especially biostatistics, then there is good scope. Then business development. If you have an entrepreneurial drive, if you have been part of your family business, you know how to run business, then probably you can join the business development vertical of CROs and SMOs, wherein you have to interact with clients. Clients, when I say mostly pharma organization who have pipeline products which needs to be undergoing a clinical trial to get approval or licensed. So you go and meet these clients, tell why you are good as a CRO or an SMO to conduct this clinical trial and bring in revenue. Then there are electronic systems that we use within clinical trials. 15 years ago, all the clinical trials that we were doing, everything was paper based. Every data that was captured was paper based. As monitors, when we used to go and do monitoring, we used to see the data and we used to ask them to correct it, and we used to write with pen, please correct this data. Things have changed. Now everything is electronic. Then there is talent management. That is what I do. I manage people. I manage all the CRAs, the senior CRAs, junior CRAs, or CTAs or CRCs that we have. And though functional wise, they have different managers with whom they work, I support them with their career development. I support them in their skill enhancement. I support them with emotional, integrity. Many a times work-related stress can take a toll on you, and that is when they need some sort of an emotional support. That is where I come into picture. And then there is GCP audits. An audit function is like you take a sample of a work and see whether everything is as per the regulations. And again, you should be of an investigative mindset. You should have that kind of a mindset or skill set to be a GCP auditor. Supply chain, as I said earlier, it's about receiving the molecule or the trial product in the set temperature conditions, storing them in set temperature conditions, and transporting them in set temperature conditions. For this, you need to be well versed with good manufacturing practices, or GMP in short, because supply chain is an entire business in itself, which is equivalent to the clinical research business in India. And there is also a very good career path. Digitalization happened mostly because of COVID, and things are changing. There are different platforms that are coming up, different apps that are coming up to make clinical research or the work within clinical research more easier. So this is about the job verticals in clinical trials, but this is not an exhaustive list. There is even more which even I wouldn't know. It might be happening in some remote corner of the world. It might take another 2 or 3 years before it is surfaced and it is adopted universally by all the organizations. Um, that said about the jobs and why you should consider clinical research as a career. Now, how do you go, prepared for an interview? Is that you just plain apply for it and you get a job call and you appear for an interview? If it is that easy, and if it has happened to some of you, I'm happy for you, but not everybody is that lucky. The preparatory phase, before getting a job, I have divided it into 4 sub phases. First and foremost, clarity of thought. You should have it. Right now, I've told you about the clinical research industry's value, the different industries in clinical research. What are the job options that is available, and what are the skill sets that you should be having to be taking up this job seriously, or clinical research as your career. So think about it. Post this session, sit down, think about it. Do I have to become a clinical researcher, or should I not? Have that clarity of thought. Because if you do not convince yourself, you cannot convince anybody, including the person who is going to interview you in any one of the job interviews. So think about it. Second step, once you're done, first step, second step is to find mentors. Who are your mentors? Probably some of your college seniors who are already in clinical research industry, who are clinical researchers already. Take advice from them, or probably some of your peers who have already gotten a job before you, and they are also working in that. Or catch hold of some industry leaders. How do you catch hold of them? LinkedIn or social media, other social media platform like Facebook or Instagram or whatever. But I would suggest LinkedIn because it's a professional network and it's easy to connect over there, and it's also easy to find out with whom you want to connect based on their credentials and what they have achieved so far. Connect to people, industry leaders on LinkedIn, and ask them suggestions and advice and what they can do to become a clinical researcher, and what are the reference materials that you have to read through, or is it okay to take a course on clinical research, or it is not okay to take a course on clinical research, what you should be reading if you do not have a necessary skill set, what you should be doing, those kind of questions. Find them. I'm pretty sure there are people who would be happy to help you, because I'm happy to help people. I've been doing this about from the last 6 months. People reach out to me on LinkedIn, they've been asking. That's only because I never updated my LinkedIn profile in the last 10 years. Sorry, busy with work. And then I thought I'll change it. And then, I've been contacted regularly. Every month I will get, I'm getting contacted at least by 3 or 4 different students to give some guidance. And I try and give them guidance. If I can get them a job within the organization, I'm more than happy. So find them, find the mentors. Probably, they might also become your lead to getting a job in one of their organization. The next phase is do your research. Don't just blindly apply to your job and go and sit like a mannequin during an interview. Okay. Whatever the job advertisement is, read through it, because your job advertisement will have 2 different sections very clearly defined, which you should be knowing. One is your roles and responsibilities. The second is your uh, education and the skill sets needed. Read through it, write it down once on a piece of paper. What is the roles and responsibility, and what is the education and skill sets needed? Then, as I said earlier, see if you have the necessary skill set. If you do not have it, find out how to acquire the skill set. If you do not want to acquire the skill set, if you think it is too difficult for you, then please avoid going for an interview. You will save a lot of time for yourself and also for the person who is interviewing you. Probably there is another job which you can really do well with your skill set. So read the job adverts very carefully. Don't blindly apply for a job and then say, oh, I did not get a call from this organization. I actually see a lot of posts on LinkedIn that some of the students who post, I have applied in 10 different places, but I've never got a call back. I usually ask a couple of them, did you read the job responsibilities clearly and the skill sets needed? And have you customized your CV or resume as per the job requirement? A lot of your freshers who are coming out of college don't just put a table of how much percentage or what was your GPA score in your 10th or your SSC or your graduation. Nobody's bothered about your percentage or GPA unless until you're going for a teaching job. Talk about achievements. Look at the job advert and the skill sets. Even during your college time, you would have been part of some organizing committee. You might have been part of a sports committee. You would have taken, participated in a debate. You would have been participated in a some kind of cleanup drive in your college. Talk about the skill sets that you have used while you are part of these committees. You say that you have exhibited leadership skills. How? Say that I was part of the National Social Service or NSS camp in our campus and led a team of 10 people in a cleanup drive as a part of Swachh Bharat mission or whatever. Exhibit your skill sets in the CV. Quite important. A lot of freshers do this mistake. They just write about their name and address and they put some very vague career objective, which unfortunately is copy pasted many a times because somebody wrote the same thing 15 years ago and it is being copy pasted even now. And I'm sorry for that, but it doesn't serve a purpose on your CV. And then you put your educational qualification, you talk about your prizes that you won in some quiz or some sports event. and that's it. But an interviewer like me, if I'm looking at that CV, I'm just thinking, if I have to hire you for a CRA job, I'm looking for someone who has an observation to detail, who has an analytical skill. Does your CV portray it? If it doesn't, then it's time to change it. So do your CV, do your research very well, and please customize your CV for God's sake and make it better. Because when you do it better, you have that much chance of getting picked up in comparison to others, and that percentage just increases many a fold. And finally, it is about facing the storm. When I say facing the storm, literally facing the storm, because with just one job application, one interview, you will not get a job. Simple and straightforward. You have to apply in multiple places, sometimes 10, sometimes 20, probably even 50. Somebody is bound to pick you up. So dig at multiple places. And most important thing is visualize. Once you have applied, don't just forget and go hang out with your friends and come back and sleep on your bed. Visualize the interview in your mind, because visualization is a very powerful tool that your mind can possess. If you get called for an interview, how would you present yourself? What kind of questions might be asked by the interviewer? There's a very nice article on Forbes website, Forbes, on how to crack any interview questions. So please read that article. It will give you a very nice insight for you. And anticipate questions and be prepared with your answers. And not only with your answers, with the answer, if there are any cross questioning by the interviewer, how are you going to answer those questions as well? So do this. So with this, I can at least guarantee you this much. You're bound to be picked up by somebody easily, not a problem. Even otherwise, you'll get picked up by someone, but that is by chance. But if you get picked up with this kind of an activity, it is purely because of your skill set. It is purely because of your background work that you have done. The first one is chance. The second one is your ability. This is better compared to this one. So please do that. Okay, you have done all of that and you get an interview call. So what is a hiring manager is looking for? First, I'll talk a little bit in general, and then I'll talk in terms of clinical research. All hiring managers, look at a potential candidate in this way: 70, 20, 10. Just excuse me. So what is 70, what is 20, what is 10? 70 is your behavior and your attitude in equal parts, 35, 35. 20 is your domain knowledge. 10% is your appearance. I'll start with the 10% first. It's easy. That's why. It's how you appear for an interview. Do you appear for an interview well groomed? Have you combed your hair? For guys, have you trimmed your beard? Or if you do not have a beard, have you done a clean shave? Are you wearing a formal clothing? You can also wear a business casual, but do not wear very casual clothes. Don't go with a round neck t-shirt or a V-neck t-shirt. Doesn't make a good first impression. What is your body language? Like, are you sitting very stiff like this in front of your interviewer, whether it's a video call or in-person interview, or you're animated? Probably you would have noticed how much I'm using my hands in between. And once in a while, I look outside of the screen. That's body language. Be articulate enough. Interviews are very anxious moments, tense moments. You might mumble or stammer sometimes. It happens, it's okay. Whenever that happens, take a very deep breath, relax yourself. Try to put your words in a very clear and concise manner so that the person, the hiring manager who is talking with you, understands you clearly. If not, if you mumble something blah, 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 nobody knows what you're saying. So do that, be very well prepared or in appearance. Same goes for girls. I do not know what's a formal for girls is, but if possible, please do appear in formals, but be well groomed and well presented. And even in your body language, don't be very casual. Sit straight as much as possible, erect, and don't be very close to the camera or don't be too far from the camera. Somewhere in between, balance it. And with that, let's talk about the 20% that is domain knowledge. If you're applying for a job, like, let's say, for example, of a CRA job, what a CRA does, find out. How do you find out? In your preparatory phase, you're already connected to some peers or mentors. Ask them what a CRA actually does. Learn the basics and think about the practical applications of this work. Say, for example, if one of your mentors says, "Oh, you know what, a CRA actually travels about 15 days in a month." So, what does that mean? What does practically that mean for you? That means practically for 15 days, you're outside of your home and you're away from your family, you're staying in some random hotel in a different city, you're eating something that is not homemade food, and you're meeting different people who are totally different from you. So for those who are mostly from South India, if they go to North India and when they speak with people, they are taken aback because it happened with me. The very first time I went to Delhi, and when I was talking to people, I was talking in a very mild tone, but no offense to Delhites or Delhi wale, you're all good-hearted people. दिल के दिल के लोग हैं आप, but is that they're very straightforward. They're very practical people, very straightforward. Whatever it is, they will slap on your face. I was taken aback. So think about these practical applications, practical implications in your job. When they say you have to travel, it doesn't mean that you're set on a vacation, but you have to travel in different modes of transport, whether it's a flight or a train or a bus or a taxi. You have to travel and long hours of journey, and then sometimes you have to meet people and you have to meet doctors who are so busy they will hardly give you 1 minute. In that 1 minute you need to summarize what you have done as a CRA in the last 2 days at the hospital and give them practical solutions. So this is what happens as a CRA, I'm telling you. So for those who are thinking, I'll become a CRA, I will do a very nice job, surprise is waiting for you because you need to meet with people, especially busy people like top doctors in the country. And when you go to them and tell them, "Sir, the clinical trial that you're doing in your hospital has some issues," the doctor will plainly look at your face and ask, "Okay, so what is the solution?" Doctor is not going to give you a solution. You are the one who has to give a solution. Can you give that solution? Are you a solution provider? Think about it. Again, another skill set needed. Understand recent changes in the industry. Learn about the industry trend. Go for the right source. If you have to learn the clinical research regulations in India, then please go to the Health Authority website. It is www.cdsco.com. Go there and learn from there. Don't learn it randomly from some website which is not yet updated. Because if you go to the source, 100% it is always up to date. So always understand the recent changes in regulations. In the last 6 months, I have been conducting a lot of interviews with freshers. And when I ask them, "What do you know about clinical research?" they are clueless. And when I ask them, when were you intimated about this interview? They say about a week ago. Okay, did you prepare yourself well? They say no. And I'm literally surprised. Should I take this person or not? I know your academic record looks amazing. The person has scored some 9 GPA, 9.5 GPA, and some 75 to 80 percentage in school and everything. He looks brilliant chap, but hasn't done the homework before coming to an interview. He or she has not prepared himself by knowing what clinical research is. At least, now whatever definition I spoke to you guys some few slides ago, if somebody knows that much as a fresher, I will hire them. But even if they do not know this much, I will say, okay, boss, I'm not going to hire you. The reason being, you are not going to, you are going to be the same even in future because we need people who are going to learn constantly and evolve constantly. That's how every hiring manager looks. It is not only in clinical research industry, it's in every industry. Hiring managers will only hire people who are constant learners, who are consistent, and who exhibit that learning attitude. And once you are done with your education or academia, if you have not done a clinical research course or you are not willing to do a clinical research course, don't just apply for a job and sit quietly at home. Find out, especially on LinkedIn again, about webinars or talks or sessions about clinical research. Find out who is talking, what he or she is talking. Attend these webinars. Nowadays, everybody has a smartphone. Everybody has some basic internet connection through which you can do it, and it's easy. Do not waste your time sitting idle at home or probably hanging out your friends saying, you know what, I've applied for that job 10 days ago. I'm still waiting for a call. And you will be waiting. You'll never get that call. And the last and the most important part, even when we do not see the 20 and 10% in a particular candidate, either of them, then we actually look at the 70%. What is this 70%? It's about your behavior. So, how are you as a person will be judged. And please do not make a mistake of thinking this hiring manager is someone who doesn't know me and it's easy to fool that person. No, this hiring manager would have interviewed hundreds before you, and he or she knows how to understand your behavior and attitude by asking very plain, simple looking questions. On the out front, it will look like a very simple question. The question would be like, tell me about your background. And for this, 9 out of 10 people always say that, I have done my graduation in this, I've done my post graduation in this. My family has 4 people. I have father, I have mother, I have 2 siblings. And then, I'm from this particular city or this village, and I like to do this. Okay, fine. Not interested. Hiring manager made up his mind. Okay, this guy did not understand my question, because if somebody asks you what is your background, it's not about your educational background. They want to know why you have applied for this job and how your education or your skill sets that you have will will make you a better candidate or a prospective candidate for this job. Simple questions can be misdirecting, but in those questions, hiring manager will understand what is your behavior, what is your attitude. Again, I need to emphasize, there's a very nice article on Forbes.com about cracking interview questions. Please read through them, become accustomed to it. One of the things we see is, are you very casual or you're professional? As I said, while during the interview course, do you sit like this very stiff, or you're relaxed, calm, or you're too casual, like you're sitting like this, like Amitabh Bachchan in one of those movies. I like that. We look at that because clinical research, my dear friends, let me tell you, is it's a people-facing profession. Most part of it, except for a few job verticals. So you're facing people. So when you're facing people, you have to appear the best. You cannot be too casual. So that is something that we look, and someone who is applying for a clinical research job, is this person well dressed, like in formals? Even if it's formals, is that shirt that person is wearing, is it been ironed or is it crumpled too much with too many wrinkles? That's the kind of detail that we see. Again, because of observation to detail, remember? Because we have been CRAs once and we have been told observation to details is important. We see that whether this person is well groomed. Is this person able to talk clearly? Those kind of things. Do you exhibit problem solving skills? How do we find out whether you have a problem solving skill? Again, simple question. We'll ask you, have you ever faced any challenge in your professional or personal, not professional, in your personal life? And then we'll ask you, how did you manage the challenge? How you answer this question will let us know whether you are able to solve a problem. If you had faced a problem, how did you solve it? By this, we will see whether you have an analytical skill. Remember, for CRA job, I said analytical skill is important. And then, do you exhibit a learning attitude? Continuing to the previous question, did you face a challenge and what did you do? We also see, would you tell what you learned from that scenario or situation? And did you stop doing those mistakes again in your life? This exhibits a learning attitude because for a clinical research job, be it CRC, CT, or a CRA, that is your entry level job, your appearance is important. Exhibiting problem solving skills, exhibiting learning attitude is important. And then there is something called as, are you forthcoming with your lacunae? When I say lacunae, with your shortcomings. Do you have some weak points or weaknesses? In many interviews, it's a very common question. What are your strengths and weaknesses? A lot of people say, I have got this strength, I have got that strength. But very few people are honest enough to admit their lacunae or shortcomings. A lot of people say, I don't have any weakness, I'm all strong. But the same person I see a year later will be struggling to do a very simple task. Then I would be thinking in my mind, okay, this was the person who said there is no shortcoming in you. Right now, you think you might not have a shortcoming within you, but as you start doing your job, you will be exposed to your shortcoming in a very brutal manner. That's what job does to you. Okay, fine. No, you got a job call, you did everything, you got a job. Now you're in a very elated phase. What you should be doing? Not many people will tell you, but I'm going to tell you. A lot of people, after getting their job, very first job, they do one thing. That one thing they do, everybody in common. They stop learning. They stop learning. Though never stop learning is my second phase here, but I give it a priority or an importance. Never stop learning. Your learning journey never ends until the day you're on your deathbed. Learning never stops. Don't stop learning. Until you get a job, you learned whatever was taught in your college curriculum. But after you get a job, learn whatever your job has to teach you. And while you're learning, one of the other things you should also do on day one is ask your manager, what are the things that you should be doing to get to the next level? Do not settle for less. Do not settle for the very first thing that you got. You might get an entry level job. And a lot of people would have said, after 3 years, you'll get promoted. But not everybody will tell you how will you get promoted. After 3 years, if you have to get promoted, then from day one of your current job, you need to start acquiring the skill sets that is needed to do the next job or the next level of your job. So understand the career hierarchy in your organization that you're part of. And read the job description of your current job really well. Whether you have not read it during your application process, but do it right now after getting the job if you have not done it. And do your job as per requirement. Never stop learning. Please acquire domain knowledge. So once you get a job, you're also part of the learning program of the organization. Many of organizations nowadays offer learning programs, not only within the organization, but outside of our organization. For those who remember my intro, I told I've got an associated learning from IIM Calicut. That's one of the things that you can get. If you do really well in your jobs and build your career, those are the perks that you get. Forget about salary. These are the perks that a lot of organizations do not offer. If there is an organization which offers this, I would suggest you go there. Third, and even more important thing, contribute more. If you and 10 other people have joined at the same time at the same job level, always try and stay on top. Always try and contribute more than the others. for two reasons. One, it is going to make you better than the other 9. Two, your chances of getting to the next level are getting promoted and fastly building your career is easy. Even if the second thing doesn't happen, the first thing is definitely guaranteed. You will become a better professional and a better person. And finally, the last one is ask for it. Ask for what? Don't bluntly ask for promotion or salary hikes or increment. Ask for more responsibilities. Show to your manager you can actually do more than one task. Now, though you're hired at a frontline employee or the first level employee, your job is to do some 4 tasks. Ask for another fifth one, a sixth one. And if you're really good, ask for another 3 more. Never hesitate with your direct manager. Ask for it. Whether it is for more tasks, more responsibility, a higher salary or a higher increment or a promotion, never hesitate. Because if you hesitate, somebody else will not, and you would be left behind. Now, that is your elated phase. You did all of that, but after a few years of complacency kicks in, you become lazy. I know you might get married, or you, you have a child, or you're going through a tough phase in your life because of whatever reason. And then you do not seem to have an interest in your career or in your job. And then all of a sudden you think, I think I have come to a wrong field, or I have come in a wrong job, I have come to a wrong company. Then again, you'll do the same thing what I said earlier. You'll start cursing everyone. You'll start cursing your peers, you'll start cursing your manager, you'll start cursing your parents, your neighbor's dog, for whatever is happening in your life, though you are in total control. So what you should do for not doing this? First and foremost, after you get a job, define a career goal. On an average, every individual works anywhere between 40 to 45 years in their career. That is their career phase. So define a career goal. Now, how this career goal should be defined? Your career goal is something that you're going to achieve after 25 years, or probably after 20 years in future. I do not know, but currently it stays anywhere between 20 to 25 years. What do you want to become after 25 years? If you ask me, I have a career goal. I have a career goal that in the next 13 years, I want to be an industry leader in clinical research. And I'm currently working towards that. So that, because of which my job is not anymore boring, or I'm not getting complacent or lazy. And I have targets that I've set for myself that I'm going to do. So define this goal. What do you want to become after 25 years? And after you reach that goal after 25 years, you will have another 20, 15 or 20 years of work left in you. Again, define another goal. So once you have defined this goal, set yourself targets on how are you going to achieve it. Goal, simply put, is the peak of a mountain, and targets is your checkpoint on the mountains that you will reach at regular intervals. And in a career, your targets at regular intervals is anywhere between 2 to 3 years that you need to achieve. Now, I showed my career graph in the very beginning, and I showed you that from 2007 to 2021, I have grown from being a CRE to a people manager. And if you divide uh, between CRA to people manager, there are 6 different positions or 6 different levels. And if you divide that by 13 years, on an average, it comes to about 2 years, about 2 months. So every second year, I had set myself a target. I have learned something new. Because I've learned something new, I also got a progression in my career. And because of which I also got an attractive salary and also getting benefits. So on day one, don't think about money or your salary or benefits that you're getting from your company. Think about where you want to go and set yourself targets, because when you do that, benefits, perks, salary, increments, everything will follow. It's like Amir Khan said in Three Idiots, don't run behind success, but excellence. Success, jek maar ke piche badhe. That's the same thing. Your success is defined by your goal that you will set for yourself. And during these 2 to 3 years, what are you going to do? There's something called as dots phenomena or a dots concept. I have to give this credit to one of the LinkedIn influencer. His name is Sandeep Kochar. You can also follow him. About 600,000 people follow him in on LinkedIn. He gives very nice advices for everyone, across the career profile spectrum, whether you're a fresher or you're an experienced person. He says something called as dots or do one thing surely. Once you have joined your job and you know which are the skill sets that you still lack, try and identify which are these and learn those skill sets and learn one skill at a time. That is doing one thing surely, and keep adding your skill sets to your profile. Remember your CV that you had in the very beginning before getting the interview? Start updating your CV with all the skills that you have done, all the achievements that you have got, because it's an up-to-date journal of your journey. Learn industry changing trends. For clinical trials, I can recommend there is something called as X-Talk webinars, and probably I can also now recommend Pharmacracy, Pharmacad, because they're also doing something similar. Um, Webinars like this will keep you updated with changes in clinical research industry, about decentralized trials, about virtual trials, about pragmatic trials, about real world evidence trials, about digitalization, about patients support organizations, a lot of things. If you're still a fresher and if you appear in front of an interview, in front of me in an interview, when I ask you what you know about clinical research and you talk to me about these concepts that I just blabbered, then I'll be, excited. I would want you to be in my team. So learn about industry changing trends. Once you have learned, would you keep quiet? Oh, please do not. Educate others. Educate whom? Your friends, those who are still struggling to find a job. You have learned these many things. For those who are attending this session today, whether on call or on YouTube, my humble request is I will ask Nikhil after this session probably to share this slide deck with you. Try and um, share this information with your friends. None of this is copyrighted, so I'm not going to charge anybody for copyright violation. So share it with your friends so that they can get benefited. It's only by mutual cooperation as human beings can we get to a higher level, but not by cutthroat competition. So that's my suggestion to all of you young ones. Competition will be there once you join an organization. Yes, take it sportively, but try and be more cooperative than competitive, because cooperation, um, beats competition hands on every time. So educate others. You can help them. You can support them. You can coach them and mentor them. Once you get a job and complete 1 year or 2 years, so those who are your juniors are still studying in your college, and if you're an alumni in your college, you can also support them and coach them. And then be visible. When I say be visible, not like always be visible in the office. It's by doing, remember I said ask for more, take more responsibilities, do more work, and be visible at office and also on social media, because nowadays social media is about this is how you reach people more instantly and fast in comparison to earlier days. Again, I will give my example here, not to boast, but it's only that until 6 months before, I did not even consider to update my profile on LinkedIn. It was very vague and it was just lying there unupdated for almost 10 years. Then I changed it. And since I changed it, a lot of things have changed. And today, while I'm speaking here, it's only because of that. So be visible both at office or your work environment and on social media while making an impact. While you're doing all of this, while you're attaining new heights in your career, remember one thing: practice humility. Never be a very proud horse. Don't be as proud as a horse. Always your head held up high and not able to see people around you. Practice humility. One of the finest example I can give as of a human being who was practicing this was our late president, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. I think he was epitome of humility. He said to young generations wherever he went to address college students or school students, he always talked about practice humility. Practice humility, please, no matter whatever heights you reach in your career in future. And finally, there is something that I want to talk about. It's called dignity of labor. It doesn't matter whether you're a CRC or a CT or a CRA, and one of your friend gets a very high paid job in another organization, and in 2 years you're still stuck at your same position, and your friend is actually earning twice your salary. It's okay. Your time will come. It takes about 2 to 3 years for a bamboo seed to sprout out into a shoot, whereas for grass it hardly takes about 2 days. So learn, know your value, know where you are, practice it. And while you're applying for a job and waiting for an interview call, and you're also learning about the job that you're going to do in future, if you have spare time, please also do something else. You have uh, you have learned so much in your college. You might be a subject matter expert. Go ahead, take up some tuitions, teach young students, do coaching for your juniors or mentoring to your juniors on how to crack the exams, how to prepare for exams, the way I'm talking to you guys today. Don't keep quiet, because from the day you apply for a job and by the time you get a job, if there is more than 6 months of gap, as a hiring manager, I will be interested to know what you have done. And if you say that I've been just hunting jobs, then I'll assume you're one of those regular Charlies. But if you say, what, I have been learning about the clinical research industry, the trends in the industry, and I've been giving tuitions to some of my juniors because I did not want to sit quiet, and I would be impressed. Because I want people like this who would not just sit quiet, they would do something. Life is about moving, it is not about staying stationary in one place. Life is very dynamic, it's not static. So with that, I would end my elaborate talk. Sorry, I think I've taken a lot of time. I would request all of you to learn about clinical trials and clinical research by going through these websites. They're all authentic, um, reliable sources. They're all USFFDA sites or NIH websites or ICH websites. And if you need further guidance, I'm available on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me. I would be able to support you and help you out. It might be delayed by 24 hours or 48 hours, but I will definitely get back to you. So with that, thank you very much. If there are questions, I would love to take them now.
Thank you so much, sir. The session was really enlightening and insightful. I think you spoke about proactiveness, a little about proactiveness in your 14th slide. And, you know, ask for it. The the thing you talked about, ask for it. It is very important for a person to, evolve, because if you don't ask for it, you won't get it.
Yes,
So
I agree with that.
that's that.
Uh, yeah, I totally agree. It's because if you do not ask for it, you never get it. Because I'm your manager, whoever is there in your uh, organization, he's not a mind reader. He doesn't have a crystal ball in his hand, he or she, to know that this is what you want as a team member. If you tell them, they would be more than happy to help you guide you. So please always do that. And that is, Nikhil has rightly put it. It is proactiveness, but I put it in a more layman term: ask for it, go for it. Uh, it's like Nike, just do it. So ask for it.
Sure. So Ankita will be leading the questions from our viewers, and we have some of our members on the call. Even they would want to ask some questions.
Who goes first?
Go for it, guys.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Jihan.
Actually, sir, I had a question regarding the job opportunities in Middle East. Like everyone has to set their goals, right? Like if I have a goal, then next 10 years or like in next 5 years, I would love to have a job in a Middle East pharmaceutical company. So is there anything special I need to have like instead of my experiences? And like, for example, if I need to have a same job profile in the pharmaceutical companies there I need to learn something more like sort of questions or I need to give sort of an exams or how many experience is needed sort of years like
I think for Middle East, I do not think it depends on which emirate you're going to go. Whether you want to settle in Dubai, whether you want to settle in Saudi, things change because they have different rules for different emirates, and you need to understand that. And that more than me, I think you might be able to get that on the embassy's website. And what are the entrance examination that you need to take? What is the minimum education qualification you should have? And what is the minimum years of experience you should be having? But from a clinical research perspective, what I can say is you need to just learn the clinical trial regulations in that country. Like India has its own regulations. It's called as Clinical Trial Rules of 2019 or New Clinical Trial Rules. So similarly, the Middle East has its own set of clinical trial regulations. They are very tricky. I'm telling you because as an organization, we had some clinical trials running there, but currently we have stopped doing it because doing clinical trials is very tricky in Middle East, very stringent norms. Only back-end office support kind of a job roles are available in Middle East. But if you want to grow in clinical research as a career, then I would suggest mostly Southeast Asia or the Northwest Europe geography. Middle East, you can settle down once you have reached a leadership role, like director or a senior director, because some top pharma companies have their leaderships actually sitting in Middle East countries, especially Dubai. Does that answer your question, Jihan? Is there anything else?
no sir, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. I hope the students have got an idea of what all skills are they need to polish up and to get into the field. And yes, the clinical trial process must be crystal clear now. So since we have like all of the people there in the pharmacracy are students, so most of the questions are around the internships and the jobs opportunities. So I'll be taking the questions relating to these. So the first and the very elaborated question I have received is that most of the job descriptions for an entry level position like clinical trial assistants you had mentioned or ETMF associate. So they have basic requirements like the knowledge of ICH and GCP and some interpersonal organizational skills and stuff like that. The thing you have mentioned in your last slide. So how do one overcome the barrier of this work experience, the minimum work experience as a fresher? Because most of the job description mention this year of experience. So can you tell something about this?
Okay, I'm a little bit confused because if it is a job role for a fresher, then there is no work experience.
So
If somebody's
actually this happens over LinkedIn that it is mentioned that it is for a fresher, and then in the last sentence they mention that this much year of experience is required.
then probably the organization has got their job adverts wrong, or probably the team who's responsible for it has not updated it. When they say fresher, as far as I know, they see anywhere someone who has an experience ranging from 0 to 1 year. So in that 0 to 1 year, it's not only that you should have been a professional or should have had a job, as you mentioned, Ankita, rightly about internships. So that's one of the things that most of you could actually do. I understand because we have some interns in our organization. As part of your pharmacy graduation, you should do some sort of an internship for about 6 months, probably in your last semester or somewhere. I'm sorry, I'm mostly from life science background, so I do not know much about pharmacy curriculum. So if you can get that internship, you can count that as an experience. So usually your internship lasts for about anywhere between 3 to 6 months. So you can say that. Now, if you do not have an internship, how do you customize your CV or approach the job? First and foremost, whatever the requirements are, as I said, please write it down. Why I'm saying write it down is that while you write down, remember when we are in school, we used to write on slates or on blackboard. Our teachers used to tell us write ABCD 10 times or your tables 10 times. Why? It's not only because your mind gets that memory, you'll also get a muscle memory. And while you're writing, you get more clarity. So similarly, when you read a job description, please write it down. Then you will understand what exactly they're looking for. Because if you read it once, you'll never understand it correctly. Then, as I said, look at the skill sets that they need. They are saying, okay, you need to know ICH GCP principles. ICH GCP principles is not a skill set, it's a knowledge. That is very easy to acquire. Just type ICH on Google. You'll be taken to ICH website. There are 4 different guidelines called as quality, safety, efficacy, and multidisciplinary. Learn which one is suitable for your job profile. For ETMF specialist, if it is an ETMF specialist job, then quality and efficacy guidelines are applicable. If you're going for pharmacovigilance, then quality, safety, and efficacy are important guidelines. Read about it. And then they are talking about interpersonal skills. Now, interpersonal skills, it's a very fancy word, but interpersonal skills, if I have to break down in layman's summary, if you're an extrovert, if you're someone who is more likable, if you're a likable person, whether it is your friends, whether it's your family or your peers, and if you're working somewhere, that is interpersonal skills. You're good with people. Are you good with people? Then that's interpersonal skills. So my advice to this person, whoever has posted this question or whoever might be having, first break down the job advert, analyze it. Remember, as I said, CRA, you should have an analytical skill. Analyze what it needs. And with that, see whether you have this skill set. If you have that skill set, then customize your CV. Put it in your CV that you have interpersonal skills. And when you get hired or when you get a call for an interview, exhibit by giving an example. You tell them that this job needed an interpersonal skill. Then you say, I was actually made part of an organizing committee in my college to organize an annual cultural meet, wherein I was supposed to speak with different department heads. I was supposed to take with the finance team of the college, get the funds, speak with different vendors, organize the requirements, and ensure the agenda was in place, the requirements were in place, the stage was in place, and everything. This doesn't only exhibit your interpersonal skill; it also exhibits your leadership skills. It talks about your organizational skills. It also talks about your financial skills. You're also managing finances. And if I have 10 candidates, out of 10 candidates, one person has talked about this, and the remaining 9 doesn't do it, I will take this person. Because as a hiring manager, I need to do less work training up that person. So all of you people, remember one thing, your manager is ultra lazy. Okay. It's not because he or she doesn't like to train you. It's because he or she has a lot of other responsibilities in the organization. Less time they want to spend on training you. So if you go with that advantage, you know what? You do not have to train me. You do not have to teach me how to walk because I know how to run. They would be even more happier. So always go to an interview being that extra prepared. And I'm pretty sure being in college, a lot of you would be in a lot of different organizing committees or cultural fest or sports fest, and you would have done a lot of other things, probably a part-time job somewhere. So you can always talk about your part-time job also as your experience.
Thank you, sir. So yes, you rightly mentioned
Ankita,
that
you're on mute.
am I audible?
Yes, you're.
Yeah. So you rightly mentioned that in the BPharm curriculum itself, we have to complete certain internships. So people are more interested into internships too. So one of them is asking how we can get internship in clinical research as a undergraduate, and if they are planning to like go into clinical research as a career.
Yeah. Simplest and straightforward answer is LinkedIn. Go to LinkedIn, create yourself a profile, and make your profile noteworthy. It should be talking about your achievements, your skill sets, not your copy paste of your resume. And then once you have done that, do LinkedIn search for industry leaders. When I say industry leaders, senior manager, directors, vice president, and above. Anything less than that, your chance of getting an internship is very difficult because I know how the industry works. Connect with these industry leaders. It could be in a sponsor company, it could be in a CRO, it could be an SMO, it could be your supply chain organization. As I said, the different industries in clinical research. Ask them that I'm looking for an internship. Now there are two different types of internship. One is a paid one is an unpaid one. Go for an unpaid one even if you get it. Go for it. Get the experience, because once you get inside the organization, you get to know how the work profile is firsthand. You get to know the people who are working there, their educational qualification, their skill sets. You also get a feel about the work environment. And now you'll get an idea, should I come back to this organization if I get a job? Or if it is sickly work environment, should I even work here? You can totally avoid it. And then you will also make more connections once you go there. It's not only within the clinical research department or the research department you need to make connections. You need to go, and once you get there, know about the different departments in that company. It could be finance, it could be people and organization, it could be administration, it could be logistics. Know colleagues in these departments, connect with them, you know grow your network. If you do not get a job probably in the clinical research, you might end up getting in the other departments, because they are dealing with finance or people and organization or logistics in clinical research industry. So your internship in clinical research department might add an advantage of getting a job over there if you're really good with those things.
So there are two questions, so I am going to merge these two questions. So the first part would be that can a B farm or M farm fresher directly get into clinical research? And if yes, then which companies hire freshers? And similar line, we have another question that there are certain PG diplomas and courses available around these clinical research and stuff. So, what kind of courses should be done, and is it of any benefit?
Okay, I think Nikhil, I might be giving some controversial answer for this, so please excuse me for that and pardon me, because I know as Pharmacad, you support some students with certain courses. B Pharma, M Pharma, BSc, MSc, BPT, PharmD, um, B Tech Biotechnology, M Tech Biotechnology, Ayurvedic doctor, homeopathic doctor, dental doctor, medical doctor. These are the different educational disciplines who can actually work in clinical research field. It doesn't matter whether you have done a B Pharm or an M Pharm. Yes, of course, if you have done an M Pharm, you might get an extra advantage over the B Pharm candidate because you have spent a couple of years extra learning, specializing in the pharma field. And if you're a pharma graduate, you have more priority. So in the order of priority: medical doctor, dental doctor, pharmacists, life science graduates, and then probably Ayurvedic doctor and homeopathic doctor. That's how the hiring priority is. So as pharmacists, you have an advantage whether you have done your bachelor's of pharmacy or your master of pharmacy. So please go ahead into clinical research. Now, which company has that, I cannot tell you because it changes from company to company. Every year it changes because this is what happens at a company level. Every year, companies have a certain set of projects that they have to do. And they already have some human resource that is working for them. When I say human resource, they are people just like you and me. Let's just say one particular organization has about 20 projects and they have 100 people. And with 100 people, they can only manage 15 projects. And for the remaining 5 projects, they need to hire another 25 individuals. And when they want to hire this 25 individuals, it could be that at the discretion of the organization solely and nobody else's, whether they want to hire a fresher or they want to hire an experienced person, depending on the project's priority. If the project wants to start really, they have to kickstart quickly and get done in a timely fashion with less cost, then they would end up hiring experienced people. If the projects have relaxed timelines and there is no problem with funding, then the organization will end up hiring freshers, training them, and giving them on-job training, and the work will be done. So I cannot tell you which organization in which year or which month will have this, because throughout the year this changes. So my suggestion is please keep an eye on the job market. One of the two best ways to do it, one is directly go to the careers page of these organizations. Visit, know which are the pharma organization in this country, top 10 pharma organization in this country. Each one of them has a website. In each website, there is a careers page. Visit the careers page, upload your profile, create an account, upload your profile, and search for jobs. And nowadays, organizations have become very smart. They do not want to put out an advertisement in LinkedIn or any other social media. They want to put it on their website and they will create a job alert. So you create an account, create your profile, switch on that job alert. So if there is a job that matches your profile, you will get an alert directly into your inbox. Secondly, come to networks like LinkedIn, or there might be even job portals like Monster or Naukri or Times Job. Do the same thing. Create an account, update your profile, search, put a job alert with certain keywords. In LinkedIn, it works differently. You need to put certain keywords and create a job alert specifically for the kind of job that you're looking at. So you will get job alerts. You can set your job alerts, whether it has to be daily, weekly, monthly, however you put. My suggestion, keep it daily, because the moment there is a new job that is posted, you can immediately go to LinkedIn, apply it. So it's easy. So you do this. So this is how you can apply for a job. Nobody is going to come knock on your door and say, you know what, there is a job opening, please come and apply. You have to do your work here. Now, the second part of the question is about the courses. Now, Nikhil, again, so please pardon me on this one because I have a different opinion. I have not done a clinical research course, simple and straightforward. This is 13 years ago, when clinical research industry was still very nascent. It was, evolving, but I got it. But I would say I was lucky because a friend of a friend of a friend knew. They told me, I went for an interview, I got selected. Things now are different. The supply is at least 5 times more than the demand of the industry. Unfortunately, it's not only for clinical research, it's for all the industries. There are more engineering graduates, there are more medical graduates who are not being placed anywhere. The same thing is true with the clinical research. Now, if you have already done your B pharmacy or an M pharmacy, my honest suggestion is please don't waste your time doing a course, because you're not only wasting your time, you're also wasting your money, or rather your parents' money if they're financing you for, let's say, another 6 months or 1 year. For what? For a placement assistance. There is no placement guarantee. Placement guarantees used to happen 10 years ago. I know there were some clinical research institutes, big ones, who said 100% job guarantee, and they used to charge you a bomb. But if you are someone who thinks, no, I have to do this course because I think my chances are better by doing this course, then I will not stop you. Please go ahead. But again, in the priority of learning, internships, on-job experience, courses given by this different institutes. So you make your choice, wisely. If you can get an internship instead of joining an institute, I would recommend please do an internship because it's hands-on training. Whatever they give you in institute is theoretical. Practical knowledge always beats theoretical knowledge on any given day. So I would leave that choice to you, but my opinion is you please weigh the risk and benefits of doing a course or not doing a course, because when you're doing a course, they're going to teach everything about clinical research. Whatever I told you right now, I think I've been speaking about for 90 minutes, but usually this has to be taught over 6 months or more. This has to be taught in 6 months or more. You will get the same information on the internet, but it is not structured. What these institutes are offering is a structured way of learning. If you think it is going to help you, a structured way of learning, do it. If you think by doing an internship it is going to help you, then please do it.
Thank you, sir. So, it would be the last question around these jobs. And
Ankita, even I have one question for
Even
sir.
I have one.
sir, I'm saying that it would be like a last question around the jobs and internships because we do have many more questions too. So, some of the students are saying that they have some internship experiences. So, it would be considered like 0 to 1 year of experience according to what you answered in the last question. So, what is the average salary they can expect from from clinical research, and what is the comparative thing in India and abroad? So, if they are planning to go abroad, so will it be better?
See, whether you go to US or you're in India, but post you get your salary, when it comes to your expenses, a dollar is equivalent to an INR. It doesn't matter. It's okay. So I know a lot of people think, if you go to abroad, you can settle well, you will earn more. But unfortunately, that's not the truth. You have to end up doing a part-time job to fulfill some of your expenses, and that's difficult. Unless and until you're greatly funded by your parents and you have some ancestral property which can support you, then please go ahead to US or the Europe. The clinical trial industry over there is as good as India. But India is evolving, as I told you. The trial industry is actually becoming bigger and bigger by every year. Now, what was the other question, Ankita? I did not get it. What was the other part of the question?
So it was, is it better in India or in abroad, and what is the average pay that they will expect?
So in India, I can tell you this much: the least that a CRC gets paid per month is 10,000 INR, and the maximum a CRC gets paid is about 35,000 INR. When you go to SMOs or CROs, your starting pay package per month is about 15,000 INR. In pharma industry or sponsor companies, it starts anywhere between 20 to 21,000 INR. It's not as lucrative as an engineering job because engineering graduates actually earn almost 2 times of that when they start in their first job without experience or even as an intern. So we have paid internships in Novo Nordisk, and we pay them per month stipend of 10,000 rupees. And that's how things go. So as I told you in one of my slides, in your starting years, it will be very difficult. In the very first 2-3 years, don't worry about the salary, the kind of salary you're getting, the kind of hike you're getting, or whether you're getting promoted or not. Invest that 2 to 3 years in learning, acquiring new skill sets. Be an expert in domain knowledge, After that, when you go to a different organization, they will pay you at least 2 times the salary that you will be currently earning. So things change. The more you learn, the more you acquire the skill sets, the better are your earning chances, whether it is in India or it is in abroad. And when I say earning, don't limit yourself to the salary that comes to your bank account at the end of the month. Look at the career opportunities as well in the organization. How can you grow? As I said, in the last 10 years in the current organization, I have grown from being a frontline or the ground level executive to a senior manager. That's what learning can do for you in any organization. Um, Again, but that is up to you. So please always think about it. But salaries will come. And the second thing you should also know in organization is the supporting educational programs. In my intro, I told I have done IIM. I have done a short course in IIM. That's a supporting course because it was for 5 days, and the fee itself was 1.75 lakhs per participant. And our organization actually sponsors 2 batches in a year, and each batch consists about 20 individuals. Now you look at the implication, about 28 lakhs per batch. So that's about 56 lakhs, and organization is investing on 40 of its best people. If I have to do that investment 1.75 for 5 days, I will think, I do not have that kind of money to invest, but your organization can do it. And how organizations will do it? If you ask for more, do more, be visible, pick up new skill sets, and do not become lazy. Yeah. Well, India or abroad, I will not differentiate. Probably 10 years ago, it would have made sense. But right now, India, China, and countries like Malaysia, Thailand, and Southeast Asia are the happening place. It's mostly Asia Pacific region, which is happening for clinical trials. And the new emerging market would be Northwestern Europe for clinical trials. USA, yes, they do a bulk of clinical trials, but a lot of patients over there are saturated. They're saturated with exposure to new therapy areas, new molecules. And a lot of patients in this part of the world are not exposed yet. So there is a good prospect here as well.
Thank you, sir. And this would be the last question from my side, and then Pranav sir can take up. So this seems to be like a first year or second year student. He is a little confused. So he's saying that, as you said, that these trials require more time. So then, how these COVID vaccines completed their trials and how they got approval in very short time? What can you tell about this? He seems
The
very
answer is
confused.
it's quite easy. Actually, COVID was a pandemic. The entire humanity was threatened, and when such a scenario occurs, some of the medications or vaccines can be fast tracked. Now, in a regular clinical trial, when you apply for a license or a permission to conduct a clinical trial, it takes anywhere between 30 days to 180 days, depending on the country, to get the approval to do that trial. But since it was pandemic threatening the globe, you applied for application 48 hours later, you had the permission to do the clinical trial. So what happened is that 180 days was compressed into 48 hours, and you saved that kind of a time. And during that time, you did whatever you were supposed to do after 6 months. So essentially, you kind of saved 6 months of timeline on each one of those phases have been done. So I'm still telling you the COVID vaccine, they have been done on a very limited number of population in a very short period of time. And the data that is available, they always evaluate. In clinical research, we always evaluate the risk versus benefits, and benefits should always outweigh the risk. In whatever data that is being accumulated in the last 1 year, the risks actually are less compared to benefits. That's the reason there is approval for these vaccines. So it will happen, and it's not only for vaccines. Even for cancer drugs, this has been the norm. because cancer is such a life-threatening and deadly disease. For a lot of cancer treatments, this is the modality, or this is the norm of conducting the clinical trials and approving it. A lot of cancer drugs actually get approved very quickly in a fast track manner, and drugs for rare disorders, like our company is doing for hemophilia. It's a rare disorder. Very few people are affected by it, but when it is affected, it's very critical. The patient's condition is so critical. Hemophilia, most people would know, if they get a cut, they would be bleeding profusely for hours unless and until you give a coagulant or a clotting factor. So for such kind of trials, we get faster approvals. Any other questions, Akita?
No, sir,
Pr-
it is done from my side.
Pranav
If
sir.
there are any other question, I think you
Nikhil, go
can.
ahead.
Okay. So, sir, I have two quick questions. The first one is maybe like it's a yes or no kind of question. So you had in your 11th slide GCP audits. So could this be as a third party auditing company who could do audits?
Yes, they can.
Okay, all right.
There's third party audit companies which work. They are hired by some sponsor companies to do an independent audit. Audits are independent and something that happens in-house.
In-house.
Most companies do in-house audits, and independent audits is like your finance audits. You have a auditor who comes, who is a CA, who looks at all your account books and say that whether you have spent your money correctly or not. So similarly, we can do it, but such kind of independent bodies are very few. It's not only in India, anywhere else in the world, because a lot of organizations, whether it's a CRO or a sponsor, they have their own in-house team. So they are not yet a kind of an industry yet.
The second question is, how is the use of medical devices changing the operations of clinical trials?
Not much. We do the trials in much in the same way. It's only the regulations that change a little bit. And if it is a medical device, um, whether it's manufactured in India or abroad, that depends. If it is in India, then we have to follow a certain set of regulations. But if it is manufactured in abroad, while we are importing, there is a different custom clearance process for it. And depending on the device type, what kind of a device type, there is a different regulation on how you conduct the clinical trial. But it's a very minor difference, but the operations doesn't change much. I know a lot of people make too much of a hue around it, saying that no, medical device, it's totally different, but nothing much. Instead of giving a pill, you're just giving a device for the patient. Simple.
Okay. So I was asking around monitoring devices. Like, has monitoring devices made it easier for clinical trials to showcase the outcomes?
Okay. Sorry, I got the question wrong. Yes. Yes. As I said, yes, technology has changed a lot. As I said, 15 years ago, everything was manual, paper based. But with monitoring devices and wearable devices, that is what is actually making change now. The future will be all about wearable devices like your Fitbit or your MI band or your Apple smartwatch, because all of these new devices, thanks to COVID again, they can measure your SpO2, they can measure your heart rate, they can measure your pulse rate. Apple Watch actually claimed that it can save you from a potential heart attack when the Apple Series 3 or 4 was released. I don't know what is the latest series number, but they did it on a proper clinical trial data. With the proper data, they said that it can actually save you from a potential heart attack. So the future is going to be dictated by technology, digitalization. And yes, it has already made our lives easier. I can tell you because 5 years ago, we used to, when we are doing trials with molecules, some of these molecules have to be stored between a particular temperature range, let's say between 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. When that is happening, we used to use a very simple thermometer and check the temperature every now and then. Then we used to manually write the temperature. Then a CRA used to go to the hospital, look at the temperature and see if it has deviated from the range or not. Now, all of this has been solved with a simple app and a software program. All you need to do is you have an USB device which is attached to the fridge, which records all of your temperature. You take that USB device, plug it into your computer. It gives you nice readings, nice graphs, interpretation. If there is a deviation, it will set out an alarm and say that don't dispense this drug. So yes, as monitors, we used to spend about 2 hours looking at temperature data 5 years ago. Now we are spending hardly 10 minutes. That's the advent of technology.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. Pranav sir, you can ask your question.
Thank you so much, sir, for all the information. I had one question actually. So, since you said about the longitudinal growth that is available in the clinical research domain, there are a lot of students who might enter this industry without much awareness of what exactly CR is. And if, say, 2 years or 3 years down the line, if they wish to switch laterally, not of
Yes.
course longitudinal growth is available, so what kind of other departments are there for people where the clinical research experience will be considered handy? Because most of the times when we switch to another department, we are considered as a fresher again. So what are the relevant clinical research departments that other people can switch to for lateral growth, or maybe a switch of department with the experience to be considered?
Yeah. The job verticals I was talking about: trial management, regulatory affairs, data management, pharmacovigilance, electronic systems, trial data analytics. They're all your different verticals, and you can move laterally in any one of this. Probably you will start at trial management as a CTA or a CRA or a CRC. Then, depending on the skill set, I told you, different job levels have different skill sets that are
Right.
needed. So if you go to regulatory affairs, so you have to be really good with your regulations. You know what are the law in this land to conduct clinical trial and the different guidelines that are available. And you should also have a knack of getting around things, because you're dealing with public officials or people in government offices, and it's not easy to deal with them. They will ask you they will ask you 100 questions to argue or delay your application. So you should know how to deal with those kind of things if you want to really go to regulatory affairs. But if you want to go to data management, then you should be really good with your software skills. You should be really good with your MS Excel. You should be really good with your MS Access, because those are the database kind of tools that are used. And if you want to go to trial data analytics, you should have some knowledge about data science, or the use of tools like Power BI or Tableau, which are used in data analytics nowadays. Because my company uses both Power BI and Tableau, and we analyze data like anything. And with that data, we are able to actually reduce your operational costs and eliminate constraints for our work. So lateral movements are available, but when you do that, you need to choose your organization wisely, which company you're going for, because not many companies have multiple verticals, as I said today. If you go to SMOs, they only have 3 verticals, probably trial management, quality, and data management. Not much of a regulatory affairs. But if you go to a CRO, that verticals increases. Sponsor, again, it increases. As you go from SMO to CRO to sponsor, the number of verticals in the job increases, and the option, the choice for your lateral movement also increases. So yes, look for those verticals which are closely knit or related with clinical research. Then you will not be considered as a fresher. You are coming with some experience of how clinical operations work, but you do not have some of the domain knowledge. Now, domain knowledge, as I said, 20% is for domain knowledge. If I have the right candidate with the right sort of attitude and behavior, no domain knowledge, I would still take that person and train him or her, because it might hardly take about another 3 months. We have structured courses and onboarding program. We'll put them, they will get their domain knowledge in next 3 months alongside the working knowledge. So 90% is complete. So I'm happy with that.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
All
Any
right.
other question? No.
Yes, I
think
had one question.
Tell
okay.
me.
Go ahead, Jan.
Okay, so actually, sir, I was thinking about that. What will it be more preferable? Like the knowledge will be more preferred or the experience? Like for example, a person, a postgraduate person, M.Pharm with zero experience, or a B.Pharm with the 2 to 3 years of experience.
B Farm with 2 to 3 year experience, straightforward.
So experience matters more.
Experience matter, work experience matters. I will tell you why. Because whatever you learn during your college time or in any one of these institutes, it's all theoretical knowledge. Probably someone might give you a practical exposure. It's not a working knowledge, but it's an exposure. So I have a B Farm candidate with 2 years of experience, or probably even he has done 6 months of intern. And if I have an M Farm candidate, I will consider the person who has done an internship, because he or she has more exposure to working in a corporate environment or in an organizational environment. He or she knows how the industry works. He or she is already knowledgeable about the regulations and knows how to grow. But for an M-Farm person who has zero experience, who doesn't know anything yet, I would like to that would be my second choice, not the first choice. And that is where I think what Pharmacracy is doing is the right thing. They're trying to bridge that gap. Now you guys know, even if you're a B farm or an M farm, you know what are the things you should learn to appear for an interview. You know which guidelines to read. You know what are the skill set you should be possessing and how to prepare for it. Now, when you prepare for it, and when you're giving an interview with a B pharma candidate who has got 2 years of experience, you and that person will be standing on the same platform. No differentiation, because whatever that person has learned through experience, you have learned from acquiring the knowledge. So that's why I said, you have done your application, you have done your education, don't sit quietly at home. Acquire the knowledge that is needed for doing this job.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Ajay.
So I think we should close the forum because we have overshot by like 36 minutes right now. And
I'm sorry.
no, it's all right. It was really great listening to you. So finally, I'd like to thank Vijay sir for this insightful session. And I'd like to thank our viewers on YouTube and our call joiners. I'd also like to thank Pharmocracy's backbone, that is our content team, and the events team that could pull off this session so well.
Thank you all. Anytime. So anybody has questions, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much then. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Bye.
So, with this, we would also like to announce our next session in the clinical research domain itself, wherein we'll be having Ms. Shehnaz Pardesai, Business and Clinical Development Manager at American Life Sciences. She'll be covering a little about the technical aspects of clinical research. Of course, the clinical trials and the process is a prerequisite, and as we can promise you that our next event will clear all your doubts and will motivate you for sure. Also, as we are now approaching the end of the program, as promised, we'll be providing all the students with the graded certificates according to your performance in the short assessment test. And all of you are requested to take a screenshot of this particular page and save it with yourself. These are the steps you have to follow for accessing the quiz. Top 30% scorer of this particular quiz will receive a discount of 20% on any of the Pharmacad courses, which can be availed on the application itself. Make sure you complete this before the time limit to make your place in the top 30%. All the very best, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.